Fox's Dana Perino. That and more coming up. Welcome to Newsmakers, a show where we go behind the headlines each and every week to bring you interviews with pastors, entertainers, politicians, and other notable news figures. First up on today's show, author Lee Strobel is on a mission to uncover real-life miracles. Let's welcome him here to Newsmakers to talk all about his new documentary, The Case for Miracles. Lee Strobel, it's incredibly exciting, as always, to get to connect with you, this time about the Case for Miracles film, which is hitting theaters in December. This is huge. You have looked at so many supernatural topics in recent years. Why did you want to take the Case for Miracles to the big screen?
Well, especially at Christmas. Christmas is a great miracle, and it's mind-boggling, the incarnation and so forth. And a lot of people who are spiritually curious become more curious around Christmas because all of this activity in the culture focused on December the 25th, and they begin to wonder, what is this really all about? What does it really mean? And so forth. So I think that people are more spiritually open this time of year. And I think it's a perfect time to do a film that looks at the credibility that God is still in the miracle business today.
Yeah, I love that. And you, more than anyone, probably, I think there's a few of us who have spent a lot of time looking at miracles and looking at the supernatural, but you really more than most. What has this taught you? You obviously had seen the supernatural, you had your book, you've been looking at this for years. What is the biggest impact that miracles and this investigation of the supernatural has had on your own faith?
It's deepened my faith. It's enlarged my faith. It's when the Bible talks about God being the same yesterday, today, and forever, the fact he's still doing miracles today in ways where we've got solid medical documentation, where we have multiple incredible eyewitnesses with no motive to deceive, where we have no natural explanation that makes any sense whatsoever, and it takes place in the context of prayer, where we have those four conditions met. I think it's logical and rational to conclude that God has intervened supernaturally. And when that happens, you're just in awe. You're just in awe. I remember sitting down, I've sat down personally with a couple of the people whose stories we tell in the movie and in the book, and gotten to know them. And to hear them many years later talk about the miracle moment, and to hear the awe in their voice, and just have them look off and relive it. It's so inspiring to me.
Yeah, what is, okay, I don't want to have you spoil anything, but when you think about the stories and what people are going to encounter in this film, The Case for Miracles, what is one thing that you can tell us, like one little snippet you could give us that would give people a sense of what they're going to encounter and experience?
Well, my favorite miracle involves a woman named Barbara. Barbara was stricken with multiple sclerosis as a teenager, deteriorated very quickly. We've got medical records all documenting her case, to the point where several years later, she's in hospice. She's on her deathbed, curled up like a pretzel, rigid, one lung collapse, the other lung at 50%, a tube in her throat so she could breathe from oxygen canisters in the garage, lost control of her urination and bowels. She was virtually blind. She could just see gray shapes. Her legs had atrophied. She hadn't walked in 7 years at that point. And she's dying. And then somebody said, hey, why don't we call the radio station in Chicago, WMBI, Moody Bible Institute, and ask people to pray for poor Barbara? My goodness, she's on her deathbed. So they did. And we documented at least 450 people prayed for Barbara. How do we know? Because they wrote letters to her saying, I'm praying for you. And so on Pentecost Sunday, there's a couple of her friends who are in the room together with her, reading her some of these letters from people praying for her. And she's curled up like a pretzel in bed. And she hears from the corner of the room where nobody was, the voice of God saying, my child, get up and walk. And she rips the tube from her throat. And she says, I don't know what you're going to think about this, but God just told me to get up and walk. Go find my parents. I want them to be here. So they run out to get her parents. But I actually interviewed Barbara. And Barbara said, she jumped out of bed. I said, what's the first thing you noticed? She said, Lee, the first thing I noticed, my feet were flat in the floor. My feet hadn't been flat for years. They were rigidly extended. And then my hands came uncurled. My fingertips were touching my wrists. And then she laughed. She said, the third thing I noticed, I could see. She said, you think that'd be the first thing I'd notice as my vision was back, but I could see. She was 100% instantaneously healed of all of the effects of multiple sclerosis. She went that night with her family to a church to celebrate this. It was Pentecost Sunday. There was a church service. They get there late. The pastor's up front, and he says, anybody got any announcements? And Barbara comes walking down the center aisle. Nobody'd seen Barbara walk for 7 years. The whole place erupts with people singing, Amazing Grace, I once was blind, and now I see. And the next day, she goes to one of her doctors to be examined. And he said later, I saw her walking down the corridor toward my office, and my first thought was, oh, she died, and that's a ghost. She said, this is medically impossible. And it is medically impossible. And yet, it happened immediately as she heard the voice of God say, my child, get up and walk.
I love that. Well, the film is The Case for Miracles, coming December 15th. There are 3 nights. You can check that out. And again, it's The Case for Miracles. Lee, appreciate your time today.
My pleasure. Good to see you again, Billy.
You can go to thecaseformiracles.movie for more information on Strobel's film. We'll be right back in just a moment with more Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. Next up, David Kinnaman, CEO of the Barna Group, joins us to discuss the powerful impact of Charlie Kirk's legacy, specifically how Americans spiritually responded to his death. Let's welcome him here to the show. Barna has some really interesting data about the impact of Charlie Kirk's assassination. And obviously, this has sparked what you've called a wave of reflection and action. We've seen this among younger generations, but let's get into the numbers. What did you find when you actually dug in and started asking the real questions about this impact?
Well, what's interesting is we were able to look at the impact across different generations, studying U.S. adults. We did a national sample about 2 months after the killing of Charlie Kirk. And we were looking at just overall awareness, sort of how much people had followed Charlie Kirk. And we found a couple of really key things. First of all, younger generations were much more likely to be familiar with Mr. Kirk. Millennials, Gen Z were much more likely to know about him. And actually, more than 8 out of 10 Americans knew of Charlie Kirk, even though very few followed him very closely. Of course, among practicing Christians, about half followed him pretty closely. But I think the most surprising finding from the research is that about 1 in 4 Americans report taking spiritual action as a result of Charlie Kirk's death. We didn't delve into what that was, but we find that 29% of Americans report taking some sort of action as a result of his death in general, and spiritual responses were outpacing political ones. About 24% took spiritual action as a result of his death. This was much more common among young people, Gen Z and millennials. And about 11% took some sort of political action as a result of his death. As you might imagine, practicing Christians were even more likely to say that they had taken a moment of reflection or political action, but especially spiritual action as a result of his passing.
Yeah, it's interesting. You look at a lot of data and research, and you have for many years now. When I see a number like 29% reporting taking some form of action as a result of somebody's death, that's a pretty, it feels, and correct me if I'm wrong, that's 3 in 10 people taking that sort of action. That seems pretty significant. We don't see a lot of events that sway people to that level, or am I wrong? I mean, you've seen a lot of these numbers on other issues.
Yeah, no, I think it was a really surprising and large impact, given again how relatively small his deep following was before his death. And again, don't get me wrong, I think there's a real case to be made that he was a widely respected and widely known, although not closely followed, figure. And so the fact that 3 in 10 Americans are saying there was some sort of moment of reflection, action that they were taking as a result of his death, I think is a significant impact. A sort of it carries on with some of the larger changes that we're seeing in our research about people having a moment of spiritual reflection, openness to Jesus, open to church going. Bible reading is rising up, especially among younger generations. So it seemed as though this comes at a time when there's already an openness to spiritual renewal. And I think it is a surprising finding for sure to just see how widespread his impact is.
Yeah, I mean, you look at this, and a lot of anecdotal conversations were happening. I was talking to pastors who were telling me, I talked to one pastor in New York City where I am. He told me he had 500 people show up. Actually, not show up, come up to the stage and accept Christ the first weekend after Charlie Kirk's death. And I heard that again and again from other pastors, but those are anecdotals, right? So to have numbers showing, okay, no, something did happen here, particularly with young people. And I know you said, you didn't necessarily get into the specifics of the spiritual responses, but I wanted you to just unpack that a little bit more, because obviously there are spiritual responses, political responses. How did you ask that question, just sort of generally?
Yeah, essentially we said, have you personally taken any action since the passing of Charlie Kirk? And that gave us a measure. We gave people options of yes, a spiritual action, yes, a political action, yes to both, or no. And 71% of Americans said they had taken no action, but that leave 29% who said they'd taken either a political or spiritual action or both. And again, I think it's been such a heartbreaking season for those that closely followed Charlie Kirk, and of course, just the tragedy itself. On the face of it is such a sad turn of events. But we have not had a political figure like this that has been assassinated for some time, and just the widespread impact of that seems to be really interesting. What we did look at was ways that people said that might have a positive or negative impact going forward. And people are really split on these. We gave people 5 different options to choose from: Christianity among younger generations, the ability to have civil political conversations, politics in America in general, ending gun violence, and cooperation between conservatives and liberals. And basically across all U.S. adults, it was only Christianity among younger Americans that was by and large, by almost 3-1, chosen as the likely long-term impact of Mr. Kirk's death. So 47% to 19% among all adults, and 71% to 11% among practicing Christians. So very interesting findings there. It was actually younger Americans who were also more likely to attribute that as the likely positive outcome. Again, this notion that people are seeing his impact much more spiritually oriented than politically oriented. And the others were sort of mixed, whether people thought it would be either a positive or a negative impact going forward. But overall, people are looking at Charlie Kirk and his legacy as much about his spiritual impact as his political impact.
I love what you said there. We'll kind of close out on that this is the time to be praying for what we've been hoping for, especially among young people, watching young people show up on college campuses to worship, to seek Christ. This is a very unique time, and I appreciate the data and the research that Barna put out on this. Thanks for your time today.
Of course, Billy. Great to be with you.
Please continue to pray for the young people who have heard the gospel in this country during this difficult time, and for Americans more broadly who are discovering who Jesus is. We'll be right back in just a moment with more Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers on the CBN News Channel. For our final segment, we are talking with Fox News' Dana Perino. She spent her Thanksgiving doing something truly powerful, serving those in need. We want to welcome her here to the show to talk all about her incredible journey with Mercy Ships. For those who don't know, let's just start with, what is Mercy Ships? Because I think there are people out there who don't know.
What's interesting is that I didn't know what Mercy Ships was either, but let me tell you why I even got involved in the first place. In 2010, I believe it's 2010, maybe 2011, I got a request to come down and interview the President and Mrs. Bush on stage for an event that Mercy Ships was doing. And it was a kickoff to the Capitol campaign that raised the money to build this new ship. So Mercy Ships is a surgical hospital ship. It started, I think, 50 years ago in the 70s. I mean, I'm showing my age, but anyway. And it was started by Don and Dion Stevens, a couple from Texas. And they had this goal of helping the people who feel hopeless and the forgotten poor, right? And this was a Jesus-based mission. And their idea was, could we bring surgeons to West Africa, where there are none. And for a lot of the people that they would see on their mission trips, initially before Mercy Ships even got started, is that there's just a lack of education, and some people with these afflictions would be cast aside. Okay, they're burdens on their families and their village, and or they, for example, if a baby is born with some problem that surgery could fix, but they don't know that, they might tell the mother that she did something wrong. Okay,
Oh, wow.
so this perpetuates and perpetuates. They created this idea for the ship, and they retrofitted one of these ferry ships that was a transport ship out of the Netherlands or Denmark. This current ship is built as a hospital surgical ship for Mercy Ships. It is so comfortable and so nice. State of the art. Everybody is a volunteer on the ship. There are surgeons that come for a week or 2 weeks, or maybe they'll stay for longer periods of time. Dr. Mark Schreim is somebody who does a lot of the max facts. I'm going like this because you've seen those tumors, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah.
He's a Harvard-trained doctor. He goes for 6 weeks every semester to go and do surgeries and then follow-up surgeries, for example. There's cataract surgeons, et cetera, et cetera. I went and I did this interview with President and Mrs. Bush, but I said to my husband, like, I got to go see this for myself. And so we went in 2013. They were based in Congo that year. In 2017, we went to Benin. What's significant about those years is that I tried to go the year after an election, okay? Partly to just recompose, remind myself. I call these trips priorities with a capital P, okay? And so we would go. We missed the COVID year. We did go to Rwanda in 2023 to visit another friend's charity. So to return to see the Global Mercy with all of these amazing volunteers, many are American. The majority of the volunteers are American, but the Netherlands, they are very close behind. Australia, and then you have, I think, about 50 different countries represented on the ship, and they take care of so many patients, and they do it with such grace. My favorite thing to go and watch is that they're so kind to each other, but this is what I can assure everyone. They don't waste a dollar, ever. I've been several times. I've seen it with my own eyes. They're very good stewards of the donations that they get.
I love that. I mean, there's another organization, and I won't name them because I don't know that I can, but we did an interview with them about an issue going on. And, you can relate to this when you're able to use the platform that you have to do something. I was told that this interview generated tens of thousands of dollars in donations in a day or two. And I thought, wow, it really is powerful that you've chosen to take that, and that Fox has chosen to, go all in and really help promote what Mercy Ships is doing, because this is important work that people are not hearing about and that people desperately need. I mean, I think about how terrifying it would be to have a sick child or to be sick yourself and to have nowhere to go. I mean, I can't emphasize how amazing it is. And so in saying that, I know there were a lot of stories that you captured and saw, and you've been sharing them. What is the thing, and this might be hard to answer, but when you walk away from this trip, the thing that stuck with you, the moment that stuck with you the most?
Well, I think that the vision of Mercy Ships to help build this new ship from scratch as a state-of-the-art hospital. We talked to nurses and doctors, volunteers from America who are serving on the ship, who said they don't even have hospitals this good where they work in America. It is that state-of-the-art, really fantastic. And I would say that the cabins that they've built, the gym that they have, the walking track, the school that's on the ship is a wonderful, amazing academy. Imagine being able to send your kids to a school like that, where they get almost, I mean, it's not one-on-one tutoring, but its class sizes are very small, and it's a Christian-based education. That's really amazing. So I think that the vision that Don Stevens had to get this ship to a position where you gave the surgeons everything that they possibly needed and a chance to live in a comfortable environment that's collaborative and fun and moving. Like, to me, I walked away saying that is incredible. But I would also say this. Kate DePietro and Molly Harrigan, who I took with me, young people that I wanted to do the same thing that President Bush did for me, which is pass it on. So that's what my husband and I decided to do. And on the Thursday morning, we walked with somebody that I really think you should interview sometime. His name is Matt Murray. And one of the things that's interesting about where we are in America, where you have a lot of people about to retire, but they're not quite ready to not do anything, there's a second chapter in a lot of these people. And Matt Murray is now the director of the ship. He was the police chief in Yakima, Washington, most recently. He retired from there, and I believe his wife is a nurse. So they're both volunteering on the ship. She's not a teacher, right? No. Sorry, I'm asking Kate. I think she's a nurse. And he is the most incredible person. And he goes for a walk every morning in Freetown off the ship at 6 a.m. in the dark. And we said, okay, we'll go with you. So my little merry band, we got up early on Thanksgiving Day and we walked with him, and to walk with him living his faith. And he wasn't afraid. I was a little afraid.
Yeah, understandable.
But I was with him, and there was a confidence in him. And then you realize, oh, he knows all these people. They're like, hey, boss, how are you? Oh, get your exercise today? How's it going? Now, Mercy Ships has an incredible support system in Sierra Leone. The brand is very strong. My husband was wearing his Mercy Ships cap when we went through the airport, and we started to have not hassles at immigration, but you could imagine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they're like, oh, Mercy Ships? Oh, please come on through.
Wow. I said to you before we started, I'm jealous and I want to go. So we're going to have to talk about that, because I would love to be there and see this firsthand. And I just appreciate you sharing it with us.
I appreciate you. Thanks, Billy.
For more information on Mercy Ships, you can go to mercyships.org. We'll be right back in just a moment with more Newsmakers. That's all for Newsmakers. Thank you for watching, and be sure to head on over to the CBN News YouTube channel. That's where you'll find the full interviews you saw on today's episode. You can also check out our documentary investigating the supernatural miracles. We traveled all around America, documented some of the most incredible miracle claims and stories. You can watch that at cbn.com/supernatural. We've got a new film coming out, investigating the supernatural, angels and demons. That is coming out this March. You want to check that out. As for this show, we'll be back again